people who you are. But what I'd like you to do is, could you tell people what you do for a business, please?
Okay then, so I help people struggling with body dysphoria to overcome communication barriers with their family.
Wow.
In a nutshell. That's in a nutshell.
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously there'll be a lot of people who are watching right now who probably don't know what body dysphoria is. Could you explain that for us?
So the word body dysphoria has become more and more broad as time has gone by, and it's a newer terminology for transgender, transition, reassignment. So it's people who aren't in alignment with their internal thinking and their external, the look of their body. And it's about, some people want to, can manage, some people can't, and they want to be in more alignment with their body and their thoughts. And it is becoming more and more prevalent, or more and more, I'm trying to think of the right word really. More and more people we are finding out are struggling with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And are wanting to start trying to put it right.
And
so they should do.
Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, with what you've said there, I suppose we do see it kind of played out in the real world, with the rise of, the cosmetic surgery. There's a lot of pressure on people to look a certain way, and I imagine that all kind of feeds into the kind of the actual problem, which is why people come to you. But so, what inspired you to kind of start this business, to focus on this type of business?
Well, in 1987, my dad admitted to me that he was struggling with this problem and had been since the age of 5, and now at the age of 50, was in 1987, was wanting to try and align himself, and he couldn't go on any longer with it. And it took me many years to come to terms with it. And then eventually I wrote my book, When Dad Became Joan, Life with My Transgender Father. But I never, I sort of still kept wanting to work generally with anxiety and stress. But then it was a lot more recently, in the last 6 months, that more people with body dysphoria were starting to contact me, and that's when I thought perhaps I just need to niche right down and work with people who are struggling with transition, whether it is the actual individuals themselves or whether it is family members. And obviously I can see it from both sides.
Of course.
I spent a lot of time with Joan discussing her process for research for my book, but then also, of course, I've got my side of it, the family side of it. And that even though there's an awful lot of information out in the social media about transgender, transition, body dysphoria, I really felt there was still not a lot of information. And I'm not talking about information about the process of going through gender reassignment, but the process of how, as a family member, you manage it.
Yeah.
All right, because yes, we need to be on board, we need to be understanding, we need to be flexible, but there is also going to be a lot of doubts, a lot of concerns, a lot of upset. You're going to have to go through a bereavement process for the person who you're leaving behind. And so it is actually a lot more complex than people social media, whoever you know, makes out it to be.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously it's going to be a huge thing, especially if someone, like you say, has kept this from the world, from their loved ones for a long period of time, and then I imagine it can create so much turmoil. You know, a lot of emotions, anger, sadness, and I think, you know, it is the people who get kind of left behind who get left behind, isn't it? It's the ones who aren't going through it, even though the ones who are going through it are going through it. On the other side, those people who love them, they're going through it, and I suppose it then becomes challenging them for them to kind of communicate their feelings to each other. So, and I suppose this is where you can step in with either one-to-one or content, you know, ebooks, whatever, where they can kind of, you know, I suppose get your understanding or your, you know, what's kind of helped you to move through with it.
Because I mean, you know, most people who do, you know, need to realign have known since they were very, very young,
Right.
about the age of 5. So if you imagine my dad, for example, who knew from 5 but was only seriously doing something about it at the age of 50, that's 45 years of struggling with it. So eventually, when, you know, for my dad actually coming out, then his main focus is going to be on becoming Joan, whereas we've only just known, you know, especially if there's somebody who, you know, like my dad, who was an expert at being deceptive about who he really was, it was a total shock. And so you've got to, you know, I was 23, so I got 23 years of dad and he, and, you know, looking up to this person who was a real, you know, alpha male role model, you know, doing all the alpha male stuff, which was what it was then back in that day and age. And you've got to catch up, and it takes time, you know. And I read things on you know, the Facebook groups and mothers, it's mostly mothers and people transitioning who are on there, you know, mothers who are saying, you know, my child came out to me 2 months ago and I can't get the right pronoun. And I was thinking, you've got to give yourself a chance. That's only 2 months. You know, and it took me years and years and years. And occasionally when my guard was down, I'd still get it wrong. Even, you know, after 30 years, I would still get it wrong. So, you know, it's you've got to give yourself a chance, but also the person transitioning has also got to understand that you as a parent or a child, you know, or as a daughter, son, partner, has got to have time to catch up.
Of course. Just before we go on, Kath, I just want to say hello to Simone. Hi, Simone. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Mark Knowles. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Linda Aitchison. Good to see you. I'm sure that you've not been in the hot seat yet, Linda, so I'll be having words with you later on, later on this week. So, God, challenges. I mean... Okay, I mean, look, I know your life. I mean, tell us about some of the challenges that you've had to face down and overcome.
So yeah, my dad becoming Joan. So that was a big challenge, and telling, you know, because the challenge for me was when my dad told me, I was so surprised, I was so shocked, I laughed. And of course, laughter is a sign of shock. And so then I was thinking, well, if I laugh and I'm the daughter, how's everybody else going to be? So that was a big challenge with overcoming, you know, huge issues about how am I going to tell people, how, you know, my new friends, my old friends, and then overcoming my own real anxiety over it because I got nobody to talk to about it. And then eventually, you know, I did plummet drastically with stress and anxiety and had to have time off work to recover. And that's when I went into, it was a weird situation really, because I was off work with stress. I was seeing a therapist, a counsellor. I was doing an introductory course to counselling. It was like,
was this your way of dealing with things? Like taking on as much as possible to kind of keep your mind active.
You know, that is what was happening. You know, keep yourself busy, be the best mum possible, be the best wife possible, be the best, you know, teacher possible, be the best dog owner possible, work hard at the gym and keep yourself as slim as possible. All of those different sorts of things. So yeah, you're absolutely right with what you're saying, until you crash down and you plummet, and then you have to start from scratch again.
Because I mean, you know, 1987, I mean, let's be honest, the 80s up until probably the noughties, maybe even up until 2010, it's been a strange world for people who have been perceived to be different. And the reality is, back in the 80s and 90s, you know, our families, our elders, they were more interested in what other people would say rather than how is this person feeling, which is a shame. I don't know where that comes from, because the center of anyone's universe should be the person going through the thing, not what the neighbors are going to say. The neighbors don't put food on the table. Their opinion doesn't matter. So, you know, it must have been so challenging for you, you know, your mom, your sister, you know, and obviously you've got children, Cath. Was it a challenge for your children? I mean, when you told them about Joan?
Well, I mean, they'd only known Auntie Joan as Auntie Joan,
right?
So that was a big difference. That made it a lot easier.
And isn't that crazy? Because if you know somebody as somebody, you don't then see anything else. That makes sense. So they would
but I mean, also, you know, my children are now like mid-20s. They were in that age of being more flexible, being more understanding, that you know, what's all the fuss about.
But they couldn't fail to be with you as a mum. I mean, not really funny. That's who you are.
But I mean, the other shocking, or not shocking, but surprising thing was that when my grandparents found out, at first my grandma thought it was something that she'd done wrong when she was carrying Joan, you know, in the womb, that perhaps she'd eaten the wrong thing, or perhaps had a glass of wine too many, that sort of thing. But, you know, Joan, being who she was, had thoroughly done her investigation and, you know, reassured her it was nothing to do with that. And there was nothing that she could have done differently. And then it was like, I've actually got the daughter I really wanted.
You know what? My mum always says that she wish she had girls. Right up until last week, she said I should have had girls. Sick of you boys. I'm like, not very nice, Mum. But oh, that's blessed. So I mean,
that was really good. So that was, well, I got 3 sons and I've got a daughter now. And also my grandpa, who we thought might have been a problem, was actually a lot more understanding than we thought he would be, because back in the family there was a member of the family, where I can't quite who was, a cousin or somebody, who cross-dressed but then actually committed suicide because of all of
stigma, the mental pressure. What will the neighbours say? What will, you know, so, tough times. Simone says, this is such a great topic. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Hey, Karen Bourne, thanks for watching us. Simone, Simone, she has a friend who's transgender and is a coach that helps people with their transitioning. So you being able to help their families still is so beautiful. So Simone, if you could arrange for Cath to maybe, you know, connect up with your friend, I'm sure that between them they can come up with a plan to help even more people between them. So thanks for that, Simone. That's brilliant. Wow, I did know this was going to be a powerful interview, because, you know, obviously it's normally business and things like that, but I wanted people to hear, you know, hear your story. I wanted them to know that there's somebody out there to help them or people they know, so that they can move forward, because that's what it's about. You know, the mental health is a real kind of flopsy thing at the moment, and people are on a precipice. Some people are on a precipice, they can pull themselves back, some aren't. And I think having someone who will listen and someone who, you know, well, that they've been through this, they can kind of give me their take on things. That's so helpful, so powerful. So I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
well
Thank
done.
you.
Cath, my favorite question. Tell us. Someone's going to connect you guys up. Says that would
Brilliant.
be incredible. So fantastic. Tell us one thing about you that not many people know about our Cath.
Oh, well.
Now, we know you're from Dudley, so you can't say that.
Nobody actually. Well, actually, I started off originally doing a degree in ceramics and glass. So very far cry from what I'm doing now.
Okay.
But going through starting with the arts actually led me into the teaching world, that then led me into adult education teaching world, that then led me into teaching in male prison, which, you know, you meet a lot of interesting people.
I imagine you do. Good grief, a male prison. I mean, what were they? Obviously, you can't say too much, but what were they like?
Actually, a lot of them were very nice individuals.
Okay.
I mean, my career in jail, so to speak, was, you know, 14 and a half years, but it was very different when I started to when I finished.
Right.
And I believe a lot of that is to do with the drug culture. So so actually about 2-3 years before I got out of jail free, I was planning my strategic
escape. Digging a
Um,
tunnel.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, really, with a tiny little teaspoon. But I mean, by the time I left, I knew it was the right time to go, because I'd stopped enjoying being with that sort of clientele.
Yeah.
They weren't as pleasant to be around as they were 14 years previously.
Yeah.
But you learn so much about life, about human behavior, about communication, about family life, and how people pull together as a family or they don't pull together as a family.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, you know, about the very, very interesting people.
Yeah. Because it is all down to communication, isn't it? And, you know, some people struggle with it. And I think they struggle because they've never been allowed to grow it. You know, how many times have you been out and heard someone shut down their child who's been inquisitive, or is asking a question, or he's expressing? You know, how many times have you seen a dad say to his son who's crying, "Shut up, you're a boy, stop crying"? So they have to stifle that emotion, and they've been taught this behaviour that you don't cry, you hold it in. So,
but also on the other end of the scale, you know, I saw mother and daughter. Daughter was probably about 16, and she was vile to her mother. She was vile to her, and her mother was, you know, in a public place. Her mother was trying to do it all correctly, and she was horrible. And I just felt like saying to her, give your mother a little bit of respect, you know. But
they all need Jamaican parents, you know, these kids. that would soon stop.
By the ear,
no. It's called the look. There's a certain look that Jamaican parents give their kids, and it's like their eyes go big, and you just know. Yeah, honestly, they just freeze. It worked with my kids for a bit, and then I kept laughing though, so they kind of didn't take me serious. Cath, what 3 bits of advice would you give somebody who is going through this right now, is maybe in a place where they're not happy with who they are or how they look, or they're not happy with the lack of communication, or their lack of strength to communicate with their family? I mean, what 3 bits of advice would you give someone to kind of just try and help them move forward?
I think the first bit is about having a very clear understanding of yourself Okay, so this is about self-talk, self-communication, and ask yourself the why and the what and the how questions. So what am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? How do I want to be feeling? And then you're in a good place to start thinking about how you're going to manage it. Then it's about finding one person that you can confide in. You may, if it's obviously it depends what age you are as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's about finding that one person that you can confide in, who will take you seriously, who will listen to you, who won't just swish you away and go, oh, it's just a phase, you'll get over it, because that's what a lot of people say.
Oh my God.
No, and even if, and then find that one family member who you can go and talk to, whether it's an auntie and uncle, it's a grandparent, it's a sibling, because if you push them away, it's going to make that rebuilding process even harder. And actually, you might be surprised at how understanding they are. They might even realize and say, well, actually, I knew there was something different or unusual or something going on, but I didn't want to approach you about it.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because and we all say, oh, these teenagers, they're moody so and so's, but the reality is, and I'm trying to think back to when I was young, when you're in a funk, when your head's in a funk, you actually resent others for not actually understanding how you feel, because for some strange reason we all think we're psychic, so you should know how I'm feeling. Why should I tell you? You should know how I'm feeling. And the reality is, there's no one who will know how you're feeling unless you tell them. And if you don't give people the chance to hear that, you can't judge what their response will be. I've seen that play out not just with with people with this condition, but just in life in general. I mean, how many times have you heard a friend say, oh, I'm not phoning that person again because we did this thing and they didn't do this thing, but they should, if it was me. And it's like, well, they're not you. They haven't been brought up like you. Their values aren't the same. Blah, blah, blah. And I think that's the reality. But I know that when you are thinking that everyone should know what you're feeling and thinking, that can build resentment, which is really sad. I think communication skills should actually be part of the curriculum at school. We should be taught from an early age how to speak our truth.
And going back to the finding somebody to talk to, when I was promoting my book, and this is the book, by the way.
Plug.
This lady came to speak to me, and she said, my niece, I can't remember whether it was niece to nephew or nephew to niece now, but she's stopped communicating with me, and she was struggling with the relationship now she'd come out with her parents, but she wanted to be a supportive auntie. Yet as the niece or nephew, she was now pushing her away. And so this auntie came to me saying, how can I get through to her that I want to be supportive? And this is what I mean about however hard it is going to be, and it is going to be hard to come out with your deepest, darkest thoughts and feelings, is that start somewhere with it, with somebody who you feel you have got a good connection with, and then go from there. Because actually, once you talk to that person, they will be able to support you with going and talking to other important people in your life.
Brilliant. Cath, that's fantastic. Let's see if we've got any more comments coming. So, I mean, people can get your book now, can't they? Where is it available? Where can I get your book?
So you can get it directly from me off my website, cathlloyd.co.uk, or when Dad Became Joan.co.uk, or you can get it from Amazon, and it's also Kindle as well.
Excellent. People watching, I've read this book, and I'll be honest, it changed my viewpoint around things. I'm a 70s child. I've grown up being force-fed 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties media, which has shaped my brain, shaped my thoughts, made me think, ha ha ha, whatever, whatever. But reading your book changed my viewpoint around things, because you don't, unless you see it from, unless you walk in somebody else's shoes or see it from their point of view, how can you judge? How can you have an opinion on that? How can you, if you know, the only opinion you can have is the opinion that the masses are telling you to have? Well, the reality is that isn't the reality. So I recommend to anybody, you know, who's listening, read this book. Just read it. There's actually 2 books in one. There's the story, and then there's a absolutely detailed breakdown of 7 steps.
Oh, 7 steps to living your new normal.
And within that, there are exercises, there are learnings. There, honestly, you can't fail to kind of benefit. So go out and get the book, guys. Go and get the book. So, Cath, we're going to wrap up now. But is there anything that the people watching can help you with right now?
Is listen to people and ask questions, and they'll, you know, without being interrogative as if you were like, you know, police officer, but just ask some searching questions of people, because you never know what's going on in people's lives, and that is the thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So our lives are so complicated, they're so complex, and you know, it's just about giving people individual attention. And if you haven't got time to give individual attention, don't ask that question about, oh, hi, how are you? Because they might just go, actually, I'm feeling pretty shit this morning. And you'll go, Jesus, I've got to be at the hairdresser in 10 minutes.
So what you're saying is be sincere. Be sincere.
That's it. Be sincere.
Yeah,
and then it's amazing then how we can all help other people at the right time, at the right place.
Brilliant. Cath Lloyd, it's been an absolute pleasure, my dear. Thank you so much for coming on today. I think that you have definitely opened up some minds about, you know, what's going on out there for a lot of people and their families. And you know, it's good to know that you're here to support anybody who's on that journey right now. So people, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can reach out to Cath. She's going to drop all of her links and bits and bobs into the comments, so you can go and find her on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, website. She's got it all. She's got it all wrapped up.